Ooh, baby, you know what time it is. The Golden Stallion is here, but it's his favorite time. The Golden Stallion loves it when he doesn't have to be alone. Believe me, I'm not a guy that, I don't want to be going around singing, I don't know, something from Elvis or whatever all on my own. But I am joined. It is the Star Wars update for May 2018, and this is going to be one of the big ones because we just got a new movie, and I'm being joined by Robin Freebeard to talk all about it. Robin, how the hell you doing, man?
Woo! Snuggle bum, oogie woogie.
Right on, right on. Yeah, boy, May, it's been a hell of a thing overall for Star Wars, but really, I mean, Solo is just kind of taken over everything. Before we get into that, I do a couple quick things. I just want to mention that earlier today, this will get released on the last day of May. And earlier today, I also released another piece of content, which is actually the very first piece of audio fiction based off of the short fiction from the Sovryn universe. So if people want to check that out and you didn't listen to it, I'm sure you saw it in your feed if you saw this in your feed, but give it a listen. It's just a few minutes, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And of course, Ellen and Stephanie will be taking part in those more in the future, and they're the ones that I got to see. Man, did I have I went, so I'll ask you, Robin, when you went, but I went. And of course, I talked about this in episode 278 or 279. I think we're up to 279. Episode 279 of Sovryn Tech, where I did a whole hour review of Solo. And of course, we're going to review it here as well and probably get a lot deeper. But I went on the 24th at 8 p.m. I went to a pretty big theater. And I went with Ellen and Stephanie. It was a great time. Of course, they're the best, and I mean, they're literally that's the acronym, and they're also literally the best. And it was really, really wonderful. The cult of Stephanie Murphy got together, and of course, we're also members. Robin and I are both members of the cult of Stephanie Murphy. And anyway, so they of course, I talked about what they said about it. They actually enjoyed it quite a bit. So. But yeah, I caught it that night. I have not seen it again since, and I actually haven't really felt like a compulsion to have to see it again. Usually I feel a need, even with Last Jedi, I felt the need, okay, no, I got to see it at least a couple more times, and I'd go do it. And I'm not really feeling that with this. Right. But I will say quickly, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at some point within it, is that, and I'll be curious to hear your answer to this quick too in the beginning here. The theater was not full. Like not even fucking close, and there was barely any cosplay. I mean, this was like next to the Clone Wars. This is probably the poorest showing. In fact, it might even be less than the Clone Wars, and I was in upstate New York for that. I mean, that's how podunk it was about. But less of a showing at a theater, and this was like an IMAX theater. It wasn't like it was some kind of like jokey little theater, and there was practically nobody there. So, But Robin, I mean, when did you catch it? And, what was your theater experience there?
So I saw it on Monday. Unfortunately, I was not able to go either Thursday or Friday night because
blasphemy.
No, yeah, I know. This is actually it's the first time I did not see a new Star Wars movie on opening night. Or
sure.
if you want to call it the pre-opening night, but. Yeah, unfortunately, I had school in the evenings both of those days, and they were final tests. Otherwise, I would have, skipped it. But I had to take those final tests and get that over with. But when I saw it on Monday, it was a holiday. The theater was fairly full. I wasn't saying that every seat was taken, but it was fairly full.
Any empty rows?
No empty rows.
See, I had empty rows. Okay.
Yeah. I maybe people were more willing to go on Monday because they were thinking there are going to be less people there, and they were trying to avoid the crowds. But here again, I haven't talked to anybody who saw it on those first two nights, so sure. I don't know for sure. But
actually. Randomly, the people that I've kind of like asked about it, like I'll see some guy at some store and he has a Star Wars tattoo or something, which I would say was a pretty serious sign of fandom. They all kind of said the same thing. I don't want to catch the crowds, and they didn't see it on opening weekend, which I think that this is enough. I mean, I think this kind of anecdote is becoming such a big enough thing that, it may explain some of the numbers for Solo, which we're going to talk about. But anything else you want to share?
I mean, do you want to talk about the numbers? Because, I mean, I do think that is an interesting point, that there's I feel like there's some misconceptions going around about this, the numbers on this movie, and so far as it being a total bomb. I don't think it is a total bomb, because if you look at the box office numbers for Memorial Day weekends for, recent history, and I'm talking like the last 10 years, Solo had the biggest opening for Memorial Day since 2014.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we could talk about this. So what did it do? 101 million, I think, was the
103.
103. Okay, I knew it was around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and the projections were initially 150 million that it was going to do. Then they dropped the projections down to 130. I heard some quote unquote professional Star Wars commentators, quote unquote, who were claiming they thought it was going to go through the roof. And of course, they ended up being wrong, which whatever. I mean, that's all a crapshoot anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I actually agree with this because a lot of people are saying, oh, this isn't impressive. Now, as I said in previous episodes, I think a Patreon episode, any movie would kill for this kind of money.
Right.
Like I mean, it's just because it's Star Wars that people have a certain expectation. I do think that it's a mistake for Disney to get away from December. Like they have taken over December and they've set a precedent with December. That I get it. May has a lot of Star Wars history.
Yeah,
but it's a different world.
Not only that, I think there's something to the people talking about there being an amount of Star Wars fatigue, which releasing 2 Star Wars movies 6 months apart. I think there's something to that.
Yeah, I could believe it, and I know people want to like bat back at that with saying, yeah, but there's no comic book movie fatigue. I disagree. Ant-Man didn't do crazy money. I mean, like there's
and I actually like that movie. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it's one of the better Marvel ones.
Yeah,
newer Marvel ones, like along with Doctor Strange, which of course that did great money. But I know some analysis has been done to say that. Well, but it sounds like Han Solo really has great word of mouth. I could believe that, and honestly, like, I mean, The Last Jedi is the thing, like that a lot of people are skittish, and maybe they wanted to hear that, hear good reviews or something from like their actual friends or more their diehards or something.
And that's what I find unfortunate about what's going on with this movie is people aren't reacting to this movie. They're reacting to, The Last Jedi and just the state of the Star Wars franchise in general. I mean, whereas I think you should treat, this movie by its own merits, and by its own merits, it's a fun movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bomb at all. And I'll tell you where I think it could do great. I think that it could end up being really huge with home video. Yeah. There's no reason that it can't do that. It could end up doing really, really well, like with Disney's new streaming service. When that comes around, I think that it could be kind of a premier thing on there. Like, I think this movie can have a lot of legs beyond what it's doing in theaters.
Right.
Because, I mean, how long do these things last in theaters anymore anyway?
Right.
Well, I mean, shit. We had Last Jedi on Blu-ray in 3 months.
And the other thing I would say is like I think if Disney was to take any lesson away from this is that I certainly think they could have done just as much, if not more, with less money than they spent making this movie.
Sure.
So maybe they could start making some Star Wars movies that don't have these ginormous $250 million budgets.
Yeah, I mean, you don't need it. And look, I mean, especially if now this is a confusing movie in a few ways, and there's some confusing marketing around it. I do agree also with the point that people have made that the marketing push was too late. Like they waited way too long to come out with a great trailer, among other things, and whatever. Okay. This movie feels like it's being marketed more toward it is a fun movie. Okay. I think it's being geared in some way, ironically, marketing wise, being geared towards kids and whatever else. But this is also the most adult Star Wars movie I've seen to date. Like, I mean, in fact, I've barely ever seen a Star Wars anything where there's a lot of sexual references aside from, say, Lost Stars or something like that.
Right.
And this is loaded with them. I mean, just fucking loaded, and like crazy sex too, with robots and with droids and all this. So I think what's kind of weird is like, so you're gearing towards kids, and look, if you want to reach out to kids, when I was a kid, the Ewok Adventures, those 2 movies, Battle for Endor, and Caravan of Courage, were fucking awesome, and they cost nothing. They cost practically nothing for the time. Right. And so that's a great point that you're raising that I haven't heard anyone else bring up, is that there's really no reason that a Star Wars movie needs these outrageous budgets and to make that outrageous money.
Right.
Yeah. So
we'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, I think there is definitely a market for these standalone Star Wars movies. I do wish they would continue to do things other than these character focused ones.
Yeah.
because the next one that's been announced, I guess, is Boba Fett. And like,
Yep.
here again, I had the same reaction to that announcement that I had to Solo, is that this is not really a necessary movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I guess maybe we could touch on that quickly, because I think it's relevant to Solo. And that is, like, honestly, I'm hoping for sequels to this movie. That's how much I enjoyed it.
That's because there's hints of that. I mean, obviously they set it up for a sequel with the ending they did, but not only that, they referenced in this movie a lot of the Han Solo and Lando novels,
right,
from way back in the 70s and the 80s.
Right. Yeah, the Brian Daley novels and
the L. Neil Smith. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which were largely enjoyable books, even though I think as far as like a Han Solo trilogy goes, there was a newer one made by A.C. Crispin that was phenomenal, that came out in the 90s.
Right. But I mean, they were kind of like Pulp Fiction-y sort of novels. And that's kind of the feeling you get from this movie, too. That is just a cool, little Pulp Fiction-y short story, a heist story.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, though, is that I kind of feel like they might be pulling a Marvel here, where like with the Boba Fett movie, now that you have a young Han Solo, you can bring in Han Solo into a Boba Fett movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Alden Ehrenreich doesn't have to headline every fucking movie, that he's going to make in Star Wars now, and you could bring in, kind of the surprise characters. Hell, you could bring in Kira, if you wanted to, in which that character, boy, there's, I mean, all kinds of things to be said about that. So yeah, I mean, these standalones, I'm with you. First off, I think the title "A Star Wars Story" is still stupid. Like I don't know. It just doesn't grab me.
Funny story. I used to be involved in a focus group for Lucasfilm when they were testing out the different names for these, these one-off movies. And I distinctly remember voting against "A Star Wars Story." But I lost. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not saying Lucas wouldn't choose to use a name like that. He would. Okay. Yeah. But at the same time, like, I think it's kind of ridiculous,
It is.
You just call it Star Wars Solo or Star Wars Rogue One or whatever.
Right.
I mean, and like, it'll be fine. But anyway, so yeah, these standalone movies, I'm appreciating them. I think that they're going to be able to interconnect and then turn into like mega movies, like an Avengers Infinity War kind of situation. I feel like that's kind of what's getting built, because there's so much, especially in Solo, there was so much name dropping and so many other things that were going on.
Right.
And I approve of that, and maybe Feige is kind of, we've theorized this in past Star Wars updates, that Feige might be, stepping in, and maybe this is some of his early, storm clouds.
Yeah, I don't know if you still watch the Star Wars show, but he did an interview on the Star Wars show recently, and they kind of hinted at that.
Yeah.
I asked him point blank, would you be willing to do a Star Wars movie? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked about him before. I mean, he's the real deal. He's one of us.
Right.
He knows the score. And so
I think the other advantage of having him involved is that he's already built a reputation of trust with Disney. And so hopefully they'll leave him alone. Because right now, the way I see it is there's too many, hands in the Star Wars pie.
Yep.
And that, more than anything, is what leads to, things going wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. So so we'll see what happens with that, with these standalones. But let's talk about Solo. We haven't gotten your take on it. What did you think of it? I mean, let's open it right up. I mean, how would you describe it in one sentence? How did you feel about it? What's your, one sentence review?
Well, I mean, I think I already did. I think I said, like, this was a fun Pulp Fiction story. It was,
right.
That would be my one sentence.
Sure. So you were entertained. I mean, like,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't even really have anything too negative to say about it. In fact, my biggest criticism, which really isn't even much of a criticism, is I felt like this was the first Star Wars movie where it really wasn't trying to be like a truly great epic movie, whereas all the other Star Wars movies were trying to be these great epic movies.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't pull it off, they were trying.
Yeah. So, and this is something else, honestly, that feels like, when you say that, and I hadn't thought about that, but when you say that feels like Feige's hands too, where he'll get a movie made that may not like that doesn't have to be like this major epic, but then later on it has like these widespread ramifications. Right.
And
that's,
I mean, kind of like a Filoni thing too, where like, There is no filler.
Right, right. I mean, but there's something to be said, which is amazing that this isn't an epic Star Wars film, considering who wrote it. You know, we're talking about Lawrence and his son John Kasdan. You know, who are behind. You know, I mean, like the big stuff. You know, in Lucasfilm.
I guess. I don't have that high of opinion of Lawrence Kasdan, to be honest with you.
Aha. Okay, tell me more.
I mean, we've talked about the history of The Empire Strikes Back.
Good point.
And his were not the first hands to touch that script.
Yeah, Leigh Brackett.
Leigh Brackett, and she was taking ideas from Lucas.
Right.
And so, and there was still plenty in that. And I've read that script, and there was a ton. I mean, I'd say the majority of that script ended up making it into the movie. So whether or not those were George's or Leigh's ideas, I don't know. But name me another movie that Lawrence Kasdan has written that was like truly a great movie. I honestly think he's kind of a mediocre writer at best.
Well,
I think The Force Awakens kind of like proves that.
Yeah, maybe. I can see that point. I mean, you can look at Raiders, right? Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, where he has screenplay credits and a lot of Indiana Jones. I mean, the only thing, like, honestly, so I think John Kasdan, what I've seen of John Kasdan in his interviews is he's a real fan. Like, he loves Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm not questioning his dedication.
I
just don't think I don't hold him in high esteem as a lot of other Star Wars fans do.
Yeah, I mean, where I've always given Lawrence particularly the credit was in the dialogue. I always thought that he was kind of the guy behind some of the wittier dialogue,
right?
Which is what keeps Star Wars in your mind. Right at first, and so and I think I felt like the touches of that in Solo, where there was some really witty dialogue at points.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, right. I mean, I can completely see your point that we don't know that he's like that great of like an event writer or a climax writer or anything.
Right. I don't know that his plots are really all that strong.
Precisely.
I think he's a good character writer. I think he does good dialogue, but when it comes to the overall plot structure and just creating a world and a story, I'm so on him.
Yeah, but I think you're raising a unique and great point in that, this was like a Star Wars movie that wasn't trying to be. It clearly wasn't going for an Oscar on any metric, right. and great, because that's how I like things. I want Star Trek made for Star Trek's sake. I want Star Wars made for Star Wars' sake. And I mean, make the thing. And this whole thing felt like that. This really felt like a movie for the fans, because if you're a super fan, especially, you're getting so many goodies and so much gold in this,
right?
That only you would know. Like, I mean, I was in awe, and like there was points where I'm literally clapping, and Ellen and Stephanie are looking at me like, what the hell?
Well, that's another good point too. Is just, I mean, in a way, this story is kind of going almost back to like, pre-Star Wars like roots, so far as what George inspired George, and kind of like the the science fiction serials of the 50s and so on. And so, I mean, it is that kind of like fun, entertaining little movie. It's not trying to win any awards or being, a huge space epic or anything, but it is an entertaining movie, and it is fun, and you can enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah, I felt it was very by the numbers as far as like overall conflict within it. I mean, there wasn't anything like brazenly unique. The great stuff in it for me, I mean, and it was well done, it was well executed. I mean, that's fine. Everything's a remix, and Star Wars is some of the ultimate remix, quite frankly, of everything that we have in pop culture. But yeah, I felt that its real strength was in just how much respect and how much connection it had to the overall Star Wars universe. That's what made it more than meh to me. Right. Was having all of that. And of course, and folks, look, we're going to get into spoilers. Like, I mean, turn it off now if you want, because we're definitely going to talk about it, because I mean, like, again, the biggest thing for me, and I'll just call it right out, when Darth Maul showed up, I mean, it took this movie to a whole other level.
Yeah. Right.
I don't know about for you. What was your reaction?
I was, speaking of Darth Maul, apparently that was, something that was, added, after Ron Howard came into the project. That apparently Kasdan had been wanting to add this, but it was only something that was made concrete in the script until Ron Howard came in. And I'm going to give Ron Howard some credit. I think he is a genuine big time Star Wars fan.
Sure. I had no reason to debate that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I mean, and my get, like, especially if Lord and Miller, who were originally directing this and putting this together, if they weren't allowing for the mall appearance, I am afraid of what that movie, maybe I agree with Lucasfilm on this. I'm afraid of what that movie might have been.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, like, I honestly, I haven't seen any of their other movies, so I don't know, their work per se. I do know Ron Howard, and he's an excellent director, and he does make fun movies. He makes fun and epic movies. Yeah,
so absolutely.
He certainly has it in him to deliver a good Star Wars story, and he did. But yeah, this is like, when we were talking about Rogue One and how we really would like to see, the director's cut of that movie. This is one movie where I have no desire to see what their cut of the movie would look like.
Yeah, agreed. This movie is as is, and it's as good as it's going to be. I mean, exactly. because what puts it over the top are very little moments that no director's cut, could help with.
Right.
For me. So yeah, I agree with that sentiment as well. Because we talk about this almost every Star Wars update. Like, we know those other versions of Rogue One are out there.
Right.
We want them bad. Someday, maybe. But
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope somebody leaks it. Because I mean, it's not just us either. There's demand to see this.
Yeah, absolutely. We all want to see the badass Jyn Erso. I mean, we really do.
Right.
Among other things. So, I want to see Ben Mendelsohn have his moment of greatness where he gets to talk about the power that's immeasurable, the whole thing.
Right.
So, this is a movie though, where like, I'm perfectly pleased as is. I know no doubt it was a troubled shoot, to put it together, but obviously, it does speak, like you said, it speaks to Ron Howard's ability. I mean, I think he pulled it all together to deliver a perfectly fine film. I mean, this is not going to, break up my ranking of Star Wars films in any way and like, crash into the top 3 or something, but it was good. I mean, that's the best I can say about it. Like,
it's somewhere in my middle of my ranking, I think.
Yeah. Like it can sit above Attack of the Clones for me, but not too much higher.
To me, I think it's probably somewhere between Revenge of the Sith and The Phantom Menace.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know me, I love The Phantom Menace, but
yeah, I know.
Which is why I'm so glad to see Maul back, because holy fuck. And I know I talked about this on when I did the review on Sovryn Tech, but like, finally these people can shut up that say Maul isn't alive,
right
because it's not in a movie.
Well, I mean, those people are ridiculous to begin with.
Yeah, sure.
And of course, we're learning today there's no lack of ridiculous Star Wars fans.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for damn sure. So, all right, let me ask you this. And if there's a direction you want to take this, just let me know. Just butt in. But what did you think? Because this was a huge this is one of the negatives that I would bring up about the film. It's not like a hard negative, but it's also not a positive, and it should be a positive in anything Star Wars. I thought the music was so lackluster.
Oh yeah, I remember listening to your review, and I'm like, and in fact, when I was in the theater, I was like, man, this movie sucks, until they got to the scene where they were escaping the mall. And they were having the fight with the TIE Fighter, and they brought back the music. I think that was from A New Hope when they were escaping the Death Star.
Yeah.
But I mean, here again, that wasn't his. I don't remember the composer's name.
John
it wasn't
Powell.
It wasn't his material. So I can't. I don't have anything good to say about the music in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really like, seriously. Years ago, back in '96, I guess, for Shadows of the Empire, that was such a multimedia event. Joel McNeely, they brought in this guy, Joel McNeely, he usually only did TV scores, and they had him do a score for the fucking book. That was eons better than what John Powell did with this movie. I was like really, really, I mean, and they got to know, they have to know that it was rough. I don't know. And maybe we'll find out that like Michael Giacchino, because when Ron Howard had to step in, that he only had a couple weeks or something, but I think Giacchino delivered a fucking great score with Rogue One.
And that's kind of the feeling that I get, and I don't know if this is true or not, but it was probably more than likely a victim of the the troubled shoot.
Yeah, which is probably why they slapped John Williams' names.
Because they don't score these movies until principal photography's done, and they have something to score it to.
Right.
So, I mean, that happened at the very end, and I'm sure they had to, put it together in pretty short order in order to make the release date.
Yeah, now I'll tell you, if they had another score for this at some point, that's one thing I do want to hear. I don't need to see the other version of the movie, but I'd like to hear the other version of the score, which is also true for Rogue One. I want to hear whatever that guy's Alejandro, whoever was originally doing the score. I'd love to hear his score.
Yeah. So if anything tanks on this movie, I hope it's the sales of the soundtrack, because it really is just terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounded like a TV show soundtrack, and not even like a good TV. It was just kind of like boring background music.
Yeah. Okay. So at least I'm not alone in this.
Because, no, not at all.
Yeah. Because I was really, I mean, because I know I am like I'm an absolute dilettante when it comes to soundtracks.
Me too. I collect soundtracks just like you do, and I've done this for like decades. And I'll go into it, especially the Star Wars movie. I'll pointedly try to pay attention to the soundtrack. And every time I tried to pay attention to what was going on in the soundtrack, it's like, well, this is just like really mediocre.
Yeah. And it didn't flow. It didn't make sense. Like there's points where the chorus comes in, and like, admittedly, the chorus can be jarring when you listen to the soundtracks for the prequels, like, because there's only one or two tracks that'll bring it in, but somehow, just in the greatness of it, it works to where when there's any kind of chorus in John Powell's score, it just comes off cheap, and it feels like I'm listening to, and this is, I think this guy's actually a great composer. I feel like I'm listening to Joseph LaDuca's, like a Hercules soundtrack from the 90s or something,
And like I said, the only time that I really got into the soundtrack is, like I said, it was during the mall scene.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's not his work. That's John Williams' work. So,
yeah, it's disappointing.
It is. It really is.
I mean, and it's a little bit of, I mean, you don't think about it because it's serviceable, but it really is kind of a black mark on the film, and they need to think long and hard about that.
Yeah, I agree.
And Disney maybe just doesn't, in some ways, doesn't care, because like, I don't think they give a shit about their, I've never heard like a really great Marvel soundtrack. I mean, you get a couple cool themes, like with the Iron Man theme or something, or they'll bring in kind of a bombastic version of Alan Silvestri's Avengers theme or something. But most of the Marvel soundtracks are lackluster as well. I mean, they're just serviceable. They play a fair background and maybe get a hint of theme or something. So yeah, that was pretty disappointing overall. But now, you did hint at something that is a canon connection, and that I was really, really pleased to see come into the film. Why don't we talk about some of these canon connections in the movie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think our opinion, it sounds like our opinion of the overall film is the same. It was fun. It was just a fun movie, and just, enjoyable, good, and, not great, but it didn't need to be. And so, but you mentioned the Maw. Now, this is cool stuff to finally, bring into Star Wars, which the Maw in the old expanded universe, just quick, was this, like, I mean, it's this giant gravity well, effectively, and it was so amazing to finally see it. Like, I mean,
it was actually like a cluster of black holes.
Right. Yeah. And for me to see this, because originally it appeared in the Jedi Academy trilogy by the horrendous Kevin J. Anderson back in the 90s. So yeah, everybody sighs when Kevin J. Anderson comes. It's like, oh fuck, but go ahead.
There's only one thing that Kevin J. Anderson did that I liked, and that was his involvement with the Tales of the Jedi, and that's it.
Yeah. That was cool. Well, he also did something with Rush, the Clockwork Angels. That was great. But otherwise, anyway, that's besides the point. So, a Jedi Academy trilogy, and bring in this character who is this lover of, her name's Admiral Dala. She's this lover of Grand Moff Tarkin, which of course Tarkin's dead now. But she keeps on doing his work, his Tarkin Initiative work and everything, and developing all these wild, super weapons and projects. And the Maw was where they kind of hid the lab, where the original Death Star, or the prototype of the Death Star. Not even the Death Star 1, but the prototype of the Death Star was getting built. And of course, that takes place in the third book of the Jedi Academy trilogy back in the day. Of course, none of this is canon. Well, now the Maw is canon, so hopefully some of this can come in, because I love the character of Admiral Dala. I thought she was great, and she would come back often outside of Kevin J. Anderson books. So having the Maw come into this, I mean, I thought that was cool as hell to finally see that. Like my 1997 self was clapping quite loudly.
Yeah, that was actually probably one of my favorite scenes of the movie, was that whole sequence.
Yeah. I mean, how'd you feel about if you have other thoughts on the Maw, go for it. But like, how did you feel about the Kessel Run overall? Because now we finally got it, the legendary Kessel Run. We saw it happen.
Right. Yeah. No. It was pretty much as I had imagined, and because they were having to make all these micro jumps through the cloud or whatever it was, and we got the black hole. I don't know if there are more. It'd be kind of cool if we eventually find out that the Maw wasn't just one black hole, but there is a series that you have to, if they actually ever, because it sounds like, they were saying that anybody who goes beyond like the little waypoints that they use throughout the Kessel sector, that people that go in there don't come back.
Right.
So we really don't know like what else is in there.
Yeah. Well,
so there's a lot of possibilities there.
Yeah, in fact, honestly, I think the fact that there was a Star Destroyer there, because they never really explain why the fuck that Star Destroyer is there. In fact, they even say that it's odd. Part of me almost thinks that Star Destroyer being there is pointing at the fact that there's something at the Maw, and then there's like hidden shit laying around. I mean, that's just
because it got there awfully quick. Right. Because I think it was Curate that mentioned like, oh, well, maybe they're, responding to the uprising on Kessel, that they instigated. But I mean, it's kind of like, when something happens and the police like show up 2 seconds later, it's like, wait, no, it takes you longer than that to get here.
Right. It's like, wait a minute, I couldn't even dial 911. What are you doing here?
Right.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of hinting at, this movie had no problem hinting at things, that there's something at the Maw.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of potential for that entire area.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. And I like that there was consistency in the appearance of Kessel between what we saw in Rebels.
Yes. Agreed. Yes. Great point to bring up on that. And for me overall, the Kessel Run, I thought it was fine. I thought it was cool. Like it wasn't some kind of great race, which I think a lot of people might have imagined over a while. I thought it worked out really cool. The inclusion of L3's brain into the Falcon.
Yeah.
That was good. That was brilliant attachment and kind of retroactive connection, because, you have the line that I instantly thought of. And I turned to Ellen Stephanie and said, I was like, oh, it's like, yeah, right. It has a peculiar dialect because it's this fucking feminist L3 robot, which I say that with respect. I don't say that with disrespect.
Right.
So I thought that was a really, really nice touch for them to put in. And especially now that we know that the Falcon has 3 brains or something. Well, now we know one of them.
Yeah, was that is that something they established in canon, or was that something from the expanded universe?
That's from the Force Awakens novelization.
Okay. I never got around to reading the novelization, so that's good to know that that's canon at least.
Yeah. Because there's a point where like Rey's working on the Falcon in the book, and and that comes up.
Right.
So I thought that was really cool to finally have that there, and to understand that, and also why Lando has such a deep connection to that ship and still cares about it.
Right.
To Empire Strikes Back.
Right.
Which that's pretty impressive, because I don't feel like a lot of the other films, other than Rogue One, which directly attaches to New Hope, I didn't feel like the past couple films, or the episodic films, had any real connection to the original trilogy. I mean, you get a little bit in, like Luke will mention Darth Sidious or something like that, but this movie spent a lot of time making sure that it was making sense of things that you saw, especially within the original trilogy,
right?
Which was great. So, what other like major canon connections were coming up for you in this?
Well, I mean, like all the stuff in Dryden Voss's collection. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in there. And I know you'd mentioned in in your review about the Mandalorian armor, and I agree with you. He's got the Mandalorian look.
He does.
And there's another connection. The ship he has, it is manufactured by the same planet that Duchess Satine came from in the Clone Wars. It even looks like the same style ship that she had.
Yeah. That one long straight line.
Right. Yeah. And oddly enough, the name of that ship was the Coronet, which is the name of the capital city of Corellia.
Right.
And I know they're not thinking that far ahead, but it is kind of weird that exists.
Yeah, oh man, as soon as you said the ship, and then I thought about like, oh shit, yeah, it's just like Satine's like capital ship, and that.
Yep. It's manufactured by the same company.
Yeah.
They don't ask me. It's Kalevala or something like that. It's yeah, but it is, and it's from her home planet, that where that ship is made.
Oh man, nice. Okay, like that's
Yeah.
something in fact, it's probably in the visual guides, which I do want to talk about that at some point. That it might have brought that up, but I haven't been able to get like really too knee deep in them. Yeah, that's a nice touch. But there's so much to talk about in Dryden Voss's office or whatever the hell that is.
Did you catch the Ewok?
No,
there was a stuffed Ewok in there.
Oh man, nice. Oh, that's so cool.
Which technically makes that the first canon appearance of an Ewok in the timeline.
Wow. Well, that you see now, you know what could get it. They could have fun with that, because like why build the Death Star 2 around Endor? And I don't know, maybe there's something they could run with that somehow.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but I did have a good laugh when I saw that.
That is awesome. That nice. Yeah. Yeah. In fact, something, because one of the major ones that I wanted to talk about, and that I did talk about in my review on Sovryn Tech, was the Crystal Skull. But come to find out, there's also the head, the golden head, the little idol head from Raiders is in there as well.
This is actually one point that we disagree on. The Crystal Skull is in fact not an Indiana Jones reference. Now, the idol that sits below it, that is the golden idol from Indiana Jones. So that's the Indiana Jones reference.
Right.
But the Crystal Skull, and this is mentioned in the visual guide. I don't think they called it a visual guide. I think they called it an official guide this time. But it is actually a reference to one of those early Han Solo books called Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. And the Crystal Skull was on the masthead of a ship owned by Zim the Despot, which was like,
Zim.
Who is like, this ancient character that's before even the Old Republic era.
Yeah, like 10,000 years before. And I remember the book, because in the book, in the Han Solo book, like they're trying to find this guy's, like, because supposedly Zim the Despot had this crazy fortune. And
that's what this is. In fact, there are several references in Dryden Voss's collection to that specific fortune, because the Crystal Skull is apparently the masthead to the ship containing his fortune, and also inside there was like some sort of map to the location of that ship.
Okay. Yeah. So now, I mean, I'll give the spoiler to the novel that's from. They do eventually. Han Solo does find Zim the Despot's fortune. The thing is it's this like really ancient crystal that's incredibly commonplace in the galaxy now. By the time of Han Solo, and so it's worthless. Like his treasure is meaningless. But so that makes sense. Now
and the Crystal Skull, like, it doesn't look like the one from Indiana Jones to me, because that was like an elongated skull.
Well, one of them is,
like really, but I'll make you feel better about this. Not the first time a Crystal Skull has appeared in Star Wars. So in the Clone Wars episode Wookiee Hunt, where Ahsoka Tano gets captured by the Tranchodans, and they're hunting her, and she meets Chewbacca. There's a crystal skull that looks exactly like the elongated crystal skull from Indiana Jones, and that's on the Transcendent ship.
Yeah, well, I'm still going to call it Indiana Jones is a part of the Star Wars universe, just like E.T. is.
Right. Yeah. No. I do think those little connections are cool. And it also kind of I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was like a non-canon Star Wars book where Indiana Jones finds the crashed Millennium Falcon. And what it is they're hunting legends of Bigfoot. And Bigfoot
Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. What a clever, I would have never thought of that. That's great.
It wasn't even canon even when Legends was canon, but it was just such a fun story. And they find, like I said, they find the crashed Millennium Falcon, they find Hans, and it's really weird because you have Indiana Jones looking at Han Solo's corpse.
Wow. That's meta, right?
Right.
That's brilliant. All right. I'm going to have to look. I have a lot of Indiana Jones books. I'm going to have to find that and read it. Obviously I hadn't read that one, but that's great. That's fantastic. So, okay. boy, I mean, there was so much else in Dryden Voss's. I mean, he had like a Sith artifact.
Yeah, that was another thing that was like, as soon as I saw it, it's like, holy shit, that's a giant Sith holocron.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it was
that
like,
big diamond.
and like and that's when I started going and looking for stuff from the guide, because like I wanted to know if that's exactly what it was, and apparently that's the description it gives. It says it's a reconstructed Sith holocron that Dryden Voss had intended to give to a quote unquote benefactor, who we know who that is.
Yeah, I mean, now it makes total sense why he would have that,
right?
Because everybody, I mean, you noticed it in the trailers. People have been talking about it for a while.
And there was another thing, like it was on the floor behind him in this scene, where there was like a like beaten up stone obelisk or pyramid that looked like it had like some Sith script on it too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, he definitely had, like, he was into collecting the Sith stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So which, if he's Mandalorian and he's like working with Sith stuff, I mean, like there's precedent for that. I'll put it that way.
Right.
Certainly in old canon there was, in new canon, maybe they're going to rock with it.
Right. And it stands to reason. And here again, this is the fact that he's working for Maul is another point in favor of being a Mandalorian, because he just might be, a leftover from his Shadow Collective days when, Maul was, in control of what's the name of the group, the Mandalorians.
Was it Death Watch?
Yeah, Death Watch. Sorry. Yeah. He was probably a member of Death Watch, I'm thinking.
Yeah, I mean, he could have been one of the guys that broke him out of jail in Son of Dathomir.
Right.
Yeah, the comic book. Which now also that makes sense why Disney pushed so hard for Son of Dathomir to be a canon work, even though it came out under Dark Horse and not under Marvel.
Right. Well, that was based off of an unfinished Clone Wars script.
Yes.
So that made sense that they would include that, because it is a Dave Filoni story. In fact, as far as I know, like all the unproduced scripts for the Clone Wars, there's stuff in that is considered canon, even though we have not seen it in any kind of Star Wars material yet. Yeah,
I could believe it. So I want to talk quick. You brought up the official guide. I do happen to have this. I pre-ordered it, as well as I have the art book for Solo, which I don't know if we'll get into that right now. But the art book, I mean, like if I were to review it real quick, like the art book, I don't know, like there's nothing that for me that stands out. Like usually I like to see alternatives and deleted scenes or something like that within an art book that can make it interesting for anybody.
There was one fun little thing that I saw from the art book that I really enjoyed.
What was that?
And that was the Smokey and the Bandit repaint of the Falcon.
Yeah, that was cool. Nice. Yeah, that was cool.
I mean, and they had no intention of ever using that. It's just kind of really fun that some artist over at Lucasfilm decided to do that, and then they included it in the book.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it's like one of Ron Howard's, like, I don't know, like I could almost picture that it's like one of his favorite movies, and they're just like, hey, boss.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but the art, I mean, the one interesting thing in the art book is like almost none of the art, like Han Solo does not look like Alden Ehrenreich. It's a very like almost a faceless face. I mean, it has a face, but like it could be just about anybody in that. That was kind of the thing that stuck out for me within it. So, but to talk about the official guide quick, this is something. So it's not that, like, this is kind of a trend. This is sort of a style. Of course, when Robin and I record this, we actually are on video, but I don't always release the video with the release of this. But anyway, I have the book right here, and I'm a little disappointed in this because it's treated like more of the juvenile, and I don't mean that as an insult. It's a descriptor. The juvenile like guides that they've been releasing for Star Wars as compared to like the incredible cross sections or the full on visual guides, where like they are these very serious breakdowns and like very technical and all that. This is not one of those.
Yeah, I noticed that, especially when they had those little breakouts of yellow balloons, and it says "find out more." They keep repeating that over and over. I just thought that was it was kind of silly. Yeah,
they're making these books for people with ADD, and I don't mean that with disrespect. It's just like it looks like MTV put this shit together, and I'm just, and I really, because I love the incredible cross sections and the visual dictionaries and everything, like those are that DK usually does, that are so well done. And I don't know if these books aren't selling, and so they just don't care anymore, because Rogue One got a full on visual dictionary that was very well done by Pablo Hidalgo.
Right.
And this one's
Pablo did this one too, didn't he?
He did, yeah, but this one's just as disappointing. I mean, or this one is disappointing, I should say.
Yeah.
But that was also true earlier in April. They came out with the Starfighter Encyclopedia. That was the same style, where it was very juvenile and like.
But you know, those books have been around for a while, of this juvenile style stuff. So I mean, and some of it's mostly missed. Some of it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the most part, it's kind of missed. So I agree with that criticism completely. It is unfortunate. Hopefully, they choose not to do that for episode 9.
Yeah, I mean, so far for the episodic movies, they have given us 2 books. They give us the incredible cross sections and a visual dictionary.
Right.
But yeah, I don't. It's weird to me because this feels like a kid's book. But at the same time, this movie was the furthest from a kid's movie out of all of the new Star Wars films.
Yeah.
Because like I said, there's constant reference to sex and other things.
And that might be Pablo Hidalgo too, because he's got a real thing for children's books for some reason.
Sure.
And I don't know why it is. It's something he's got a huge collection. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of his office, but he's got a huge collection of children's books.
Yeah, I might have seen it in a Star Wars show, but I could totally believe it.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, one thing that's interesting, in fact, bringing up these visual dictionaries, one of the big canon connections that a lot of sources was bringing up, and of course I brought it up on my review. Of course, the way they pronounce it's damned funny. I always pronounced it Taras Kasai, and I've heard plenty of other people pronounce it Taras Kasai instead of Terrace Cassie.
I'm the opposite.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've always pronounced it Terrakasi.
Wow. So like Angry Video Game Nerd did it. He pronounced it that way. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, regardless, this was just for clarity. A lot of people are saying, oh, they mentioned, Terrace Cassi in this. And I'm like, well, that's not the first time we've gotten a mention of it in canon.
Right.
The first time was actually in The Last Jedi visual dictionary, where they did bring it up that Snoke's guards, those red guards, that they were trained in Terrace Cassi.
Right.
But I mean, I'm still glad that it's getting mentioned. I think that's really cool that Kira can do it. Like, I mean, rock on, That was a really nice connection, nice deep cut, to have there.
Yeah. And it kind of gives some legitimacy to her being kind of a badass, which I think is cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I'll ask you this. I mean, we can get into other canon connections as well, but I really liked her character a lot.
Yeah. I did too.
Yeah, I mean, Emilia Clarke delivered, which she hasn't always done in all of her roles outside of Game of Thrones. But I thought that she made it work, and I just want to see more. I want to know the dark past. I want to know the whole thing.
Yeah,
I give credit to Lucasfilm or to Disney for releasing. They already released a Forces of Destiny cartoon that has Kira as the lead against IG-88 and Hondo,
which I thought was fun that they brought Hondo in for that. That was
great. It was hilarious. It was genuinely funny. Like, that's one of the best Forces of Destiny they've done.
I agree.
And with such a fresh character too, which I thought was really cool. Which that was, I mean, and to bring in a bounty hunter, because, in the movie we get mentions of Bosk, right? Which that was nice.
Right. And Arsing.
Yeah. Arsing. That was a huge one. I mean, I was like, whoa, they mentioned Arsing, and I can't wait to find out how the hell Tobias Beckett did that business. So, yeah.
Well, it's always one of those things, is like, can you ever really trust anything that these people say?
Yeah, right.
Is he really dead? Or is he just trying to puff up his reputation as having killed her?
Well, it's a certain point of view,
Right, yeah.
That's what George would say. It's like, well, it's a certain point of view. It's like,
right.
Yeah, in Lando's view, she's dead, but, who knows? So, so like the Aura Singh name drop was really cool, because again, that's referencing, as far as like within larger canon, within the movies themselves, really you're only pointing at episode 1 when you talk about that. And I thought that was cool. Yeah, I mean, and of course she had the relationship with Boba in the Clone Wars, but
and I really like that they put her in that series, because like from episode 1, like you see this character, like, oh, she looks cool, like, you want to know more about her. And they did release, I remember, some little tidbits about her, around that time that episode 1 came out. Then we didn't hear anything else about her
we got
in the next 2 movies.
Yeah, that was about it. So that was nice to. Yeah, I mean, again, this movie was just loaded with all these different name drops and canon connections and everything that I thought was really.
And another one, like Lando recording his own stories, and those were references to the Lando novels.
Yeah, from L. Neil Smith.
Right.
That was cool. What did you think?
And I kind of like the idea of it being like it's fiction within the Star Wars universe. Like, you know, you have a story that might not be canon, but it could be canon fiction within the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm just waiting for like a Journal of the Wills to reference the adventures of Lando Calrissian, you know. Like, I mean, that'd be perfect since we got the Wills in canon now too.
Right.
So what did you think of Donald Glover's performance? How about that? Like, what was
it was good. I don't have any complaints. I'm not as blown away with it as a lot of other people seem to be. I'm with you. I think Chewie stole the movie.
Yeah.
And I thought that from seeing the second trailer. I said, "Oh, Chewie's going to be great in this movie."
Yeah.
And the guy the guy that they got to take over the role of Chewie, he's good. They did it, but he's good. Yeah, he's a Finnish guy.
Yeah.
He's from Finland, and they did you know, Wired does a thing where like actors read like Google searches about themselves, and they did one with him and Emilia Clarke, and like he actually speaks Sherwook really well. The actor, I mean, I could believe that when they go into the sound studio, they just get him to do it because he's really good at it.
That's amazing. Yeah, because oh shit, not David Prowse. Why am I drawing a blank on the original Chewbacca's name?
Oh,
Peter.
Yeah.
Peter Mayhew. That's it.
Peter, there you go. Peter Mayhew.
Peter Mayhew. I knew it was Peter something. Yeah, Peter Mayhew. Like, yeah, because he really didn't, you know, do that. I mean, his great was and everything, but
because that was something that they I think they got from different like real animals and stuff, and just kind of like speed up and slow down certain animal noises. But like, the actor here who plays Chewbacca in this movie, he does the voice really well, like better actually than I've heard any human being do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a job for life. Like he's
absolutely, absolutely.
You know, because he's young. He's like 20.
Yeah.
Something. I mean, like he's.
Well, I mean, it's good for it because he used to be a basketball player, and so I mean, you know, like he doesn't have to wear out his body now. You know, sports.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, Chewie stole the show, and I thought Kira, like, the more I think about her, like, she really, and of course, Maul's appearance, like, just is a showstopper,
right?
You know?
And just leaves you wanting more.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool, like, if they did do like if they were going to do like another character focused one. I think it would be cool if we got a Darth Maul movie.
I'd take it
because there's still plenty of like blank spaces in his history.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you could even do a Maul movie in between, like, what, season 3 and would it be season 3 and 4 or season 2 and 3 of Rebels? I mean, like, there's a pocket there, right? You know, I mean, there's plenty of pockets.
Yeah, and there's the huge pocket between Clone Wars and Rebels, which is kind of where Solo takes place,
right?
Because, you know, like, apparently he starts this whole new criminal order because originally he had the what was it called, the Shadow Collective.
Right, which was a bunch of different groups, like all under one.
Right, right. That he kind of like forced together by his force of will and just kind of conquering all of them.
Yeah.
And now he's just, you know, he's trying to do things more. And it's like, you know, like first I thought, well, like, why didn't they just use the Shadow Collective name? Because most people probably aren't going to remember that when they're watching movies. Probably not even most Star Wars fans are, you know, until afterwards going to go, oh, but then I realized, well, no, if you use the name Shadow Collective, that would be a big tip off to Palpatine that Darth Maul is still around.
Yeah, good point.
On his back.
Good point.
So he had to change the name.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when he showed up in the movie, it took me a second. I'm like, wait a minute, I know that voice. What the fucking, like, it's not the Emperor. Like, what the hell? And it did take me a second. Then then you realize it's Sam Witwer and it's Maul.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had it spoiled for me that Maul was in the movie.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That was a nice reveal. I mean, it's not exactly a spoiler because if you're sweaty with Star Wars,
it totally makes 100% sense.
Yeah,
that he fits into this space in the Star Wars universe, and he's still involved in the criminal underground. That makes total sense for his character.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about one of the most powerful characters in Star Wars history.
Absolutely,
frankly. Yeah. And so for him to, like, you know, backstage, no, that doesn't make any sense. You know,
right? Yeah, and it kind of shows the development of the character that he's learning to be more subtle than he has been, because he was, you know, just kind of over the top in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, it was nice
he wasn't afraid about hiding his identity or trying to, you know, protect himself or anything. He was out in the front.
Yeah, it was nice for him to play it cool, and that worked. Yeah, absolutely.
Because that was a big thing that they've done in his comics, is that he's always he's so eager to go out and do battle and prove himself and reveal himself to the Jedi. And, you know, Palpatine keeps on having to like restrain him from like ruining things by revealing stuff too early to the Jedi. And like it took him, you know, being knocked off his pedestal to finally learn to keep it cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And act like a Sith. I mean, it's funny, he's not a Sith now, but he's finally acting like one.
Yeah, and I really do, and I'll ask you this too. I mean, I really hope. I mean, we need sequels, or at least let's get Maul in the Boba Fett movie. Let's get Maul, you know, in all these other Star Wars stories. Let's make him like a common thread.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Know, almost a Thanos style character or something like that.
I can't imagine that they just dropped that for no reason.
Yeah. You know? I mean, that's a huge move.
Yeah. So I mean, like the fact that they put it in the movie, I don't think they just did that flippantly.
Right. So, all right. Well, I mean, if they say next week they announce that they're going to make Solo 2, I mean, how do you feel about that?
I would be a little worried for Lucasfilm because of the you know, underperformance by their expectations.
Sure.
You know, it kind of seems like they're doubling down to a certain degree, but I really think I don't think it would be a good idea to do a Solo sequel. I think it would be, like you said, just kind of do sort of the Marvel thing where you're setting things up and other movies connect to it, and you're starting to really kind of rebuild the Star Wars cinematic universe with all these deep connections. Because like I said, we didn't really get those deep connections with the sequel movies so far, the sequel trilogy. It's kind of bereft of a lot of that kind of stuff. And, you know, if you're going to have a cinematic universe, you need that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of the direct, like at first I'm like, okay, let's do a Solo trilogy, but then like I'm starting to lean more towards no, let's just have all these characters appear in each other's films,
right?
You know, over time, and so
and if they're going to do an Obi-Wan movie, they could put him in there too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, maybe not out in the front, but I mean, like, because they already had, you know, the final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Maul in the end, but I could see, you know, them including Maul in the background of the Obi-Wan story, sort of like, you know, searching for him or like, you know.
Well, because so in that episode, the season 4 episode of Rebels, where we finally see the ultimate fate of Maul with Obi-Wan, like Obi-Wan's not surprised that he's there, you know, and so it would make sense if there's an Obi-Wan movie and he's like going after, you know, Crimson Dawn or whatever, and he knows who's in charge. That would make a lot of sense.
That would be cool, and it would make sense for Crimson Dawn to be operating on Tatooine.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. Like to compete with Jabba, like that would make a ton of sense in the world. Yeah, I could see that. Which that was nice. You definitely got references without naming Jabba. You certainly got plenty of reference to Jabba in the film,
right?
In Solo, which was really cool. So any other major canon connections that came up for you in that you wanted to bring up?
The other thing that was cool to me was the apparently the other thing in Dryden Voss' collection was a set of Nogri cutlery, which I thought was cool. This is the first time I think that the name Nogri has appeared, because I mean you have what's his name from showing up in Rebels, Rook, but they never explicitly said that he was Nogri. Right. It was always kind of left as a mystery as what his species was. Well, now at least we have confirmation that the Nogri exist in the canon universe. So I'm hoping we get some of that in the future. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think we might get in, and actually I'm expecting, or what I'm hoping for, we'll review this book when it comes out. It'll be a major talking point because it'll probably be better than most of the movies that have come out. The Thrawn was alliances with where it's Thrawn and Vader working together. Right. I am anticipating that book to introduce us to Rook and to the Nogri, because
I hope so. Yeah.
Because in the in the old canon, the idea was that like the Nogri were dedicated to Vader, and like they worshipped Vader and followed him everywhere.
Well, not Vader, but Anakin Skywalker, because Anakin Skywalker saved them during the Clone Wars.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I'm kind of hoping we get that or we get some kind of payoff.
Absolutely.
In this book, and maybe this is just kind of pointing towards that to get us in that direction. So that's cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that one.
One other cool canon connection was, and this is just kind of cool on a small, you know, it is nice that they did this for the actor, but the character that who played Wicket,
Oh, Warwick Davis.
Warwick Davis. He appears with Enfys Nest's gang at
Yes.
the end of the movie.
Yep.
And it's the same character he played in episode 1 who was sitting next
Oh.
to
Yeah, he's with Jabba. Or he's
you
like
know, not Jabba. He's sitting next to Watto.
Yeah, but he's
During
at the pod race
scene.
scene.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So and they
nice.
mentioned that in the visual guys that he had a change of heart and turned away from his criminal ways and went and became a rebel, which I think is cool. And I hope he shows up in the future as like a member of the Rebel Alliance or something, because I thought that was neat.
You know, I know I'm unique in this, and like I've been living with it for almost 20 years now. Like I really do like episode 1, and I am so glad that Disney is paying homage to that movie over and over and over again.
Yeah, because a lot of people seem to have this misconception that Disney is treating the prequels as like toxic material that they don't want to touch.
Right.
And I don't think that's true.
No, yeah. I mean, they got to know, like there's so much richness of story that you could run with.
Right.
That takes place in those times.
I do think to a certain degree they have been sort of catering to the original trilogy fans.
Sure.
But the original trilogy fans, a lot of them seem to think that's at the expense of the prequel trilogy. But that's its own generation of fans, and they still love Star Wars too. And I don't think Disney is discounting them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that there's there's way more lip service to the prequels than there's been in a long time for Star Wars. So I have no, I appreciate Disney at least doing that. Okay, any other canon connections, or we can wrap up our solo talk.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was just like I said, the big things for me was just all the stuff in Dryden Vox's collections, and then the connection to the old Solo and Lando novels, which was really like kind of the most fun stuff to me.
Yeah. How did you feel about oh shit, this is terrible. This is like the forget a name episode. But Tobias Beckett, the guy that played Tobias Beckett,
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson, thank you.
Yeah.
My whole life, I just want to make this clear that this isn't like just tonight. My whole life, I always confuse, and I know they don't look anything alike. I always confuse Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. And I know they're not even remotely related. And somehow I just put those two guys together.
It's not just you. In fact, it was funny. I think I don't remember where it was, but they were doing an interview with him about Solo. And then like one of the questions was, is Woody Harrelson related to Matthew McConaughey? And Woody Harrelson jokingly says, yeah, he's my brother.
Okay. So it's not just me.
No, it's not.
Because I always want to call him Matthew McConaughey when it's Woody Harrelson. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, of course, I remember him from Cheers because my parents used to watch Cheers all the time. So. Oh
yeah, I mean, I always think of him with People versus Larry Flint. That's like the main thing I think of him from. Even though he's been in other stuff, War for Planet of the Apes. I mean, he's been in a lot over the years. But interesting. Yeah. So I mean, but how did you think that Tobias Beckett like came off? Like, I mean, did that character work for you?
Yeah, I enjoyed his character. I did think it was like the only thing like a criticisms I have, not really of him, but like his wife, Val, I didn't understand why she basically committed suicide. That made no sense.
Agreed.
Other than to provide, dramatic death scene, which you already had that with the character that Jon Favreau was voicing, the alien, four-armed alien guy.
The pilot. Yeah.
So,
Which was well done. Very well done.
Yeah. No, it was well, but her death just kind of felt really hollow.
Yeah. Like the whole character just seemed. I know for a while everybody was hoping that it was Sana, Sana Solo, but I mean, for what it was, well, it was what it was. But yeah, I agree with you. That did feel kind of hollow for such a cheap payoff. That was the reason for it, for that whole scene in the first place. I mean, any characters stand out as like a raw negative? I mean, there's no Jar Jars in this movie, like nothing like that.
I did think that the crime boss on Corellia was kind of
Lady Proxima.
Yeah, Lady Proxima.
Yeah, she's even worse when you read like there's a novel that came out a few days ago, Most Wanted, that has to do with the like Han Solo and Kira's early life on Corellia.
And this isn't a knock on Jim Henson, but it seemed like a Jim Henson character.
Yeah, it was a little too Muppet.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Yeah, I mean, but it doesn't do her Lady Proxima in like in these novels. It doesn't do her character any service either. So it just kind of gets worse.
Okay.
But this is something I want to ask you about quick that I wanted to ask you at the beginning of the episode, but we'll get it in here. I mean, what did you think of the opening? Because I think everybody like it was unanimous panning of Rogue One's
Right.
opening. Like that was
Yeah,
ridiculous.
rightly
The title
so.
sequence. Yeah, because
Right.
it
Yeah.
sucked.
Yeah.
What did you think of this one?
I,
Just
I
like
liked it. Interestingly enough, I think that in a way it was almost another like subtle Harrison Ford reference because it almost seemed like the Blade Runner intro.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. I didn't think
yeah.
about that, but good
Uh,
call.
they did mention that like the one thing that I'm kind of like I don't know like they describing the Star Wars universe at that time as being an age of lawlessness. And I'm thinking, well, is that really true? Because their whole reason that people embraced the Empire was because they were going to they established law and order.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that was a little odd to me.
Yeah, I agree. That is kind of, I mean, like if they wanted to say kind of like how the Dr. Aphra comics open up where it's like it's a time of opportunity. Like that
Yeah,
would have
or if
worked.
like or if they said it was like an age of corruption and
Yeah,
things
corruption.
like that. Yeah, then I could totally agree with that. But like yeah, it doesn't really make sense to describe the entire Star Wars universe as being a time of lawlessness.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. But I like the style. I mean the
Oh
whole
yeah,
opening I thought was very
yeah.
well done.
If they do that in future one-off Star Wars story movies, all for it. Do that.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, granted, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I've always been for like the opening, kind of like monologue words, not like a crawl like
Hmm.
Star Wars does, but where like you're just getting flashed. I mean, some of the greatest movies and Oscar winning movies have done that where, it's opening up with text. You think Gladiator and some others. So I'm a huge fan of that and I love to see it return,
Yeah.
where you're just getting like, okay,
And I will say that actually the music during the opening did work for that part, where it
yep.
was just kind of like sinister, and that worked.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it did work there. It opened very well, which I
Yeah,
think set the tone for the film, and it needed to have that tone
absolutely.
set. Yeah, absolutely. So, anything else you want to get out there about Solo: A Star Wars Story?
No, I think we covered like most of the big stuff. Let me just I had a few notes, but oh, the another just really small nitpick complaint, but the Wookiee on Kessel that Chewbacca
Oh,
saves
was that
uh,
low?
was Sagwa
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
was
all right.
his name, but I mean, um, I didn't actually see a clear picture of that character until this morning, and noticed it was just the coloration of his face, but it really in the movie looked like he had a shaved face.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like a character, like it almost looked like a character from the old Planet of the Apes movies.
Yep. I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
And that
That-
really just kind of like, oh, that doesn't look good.
yeah. 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 No, I agree. I mean, I guess how do you differentiate between the Wookiees like in a really well and fast fashion? That's
Right.
got to be difficult to do, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
That did look odd. It looked very
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. And oh, did you want to talk about the droids?
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's talk about this because I did mention it in my review, or about the droids. But yeah,
Right.
go ahead, open her up. What do you got to bring on with that?
Yeah. I mean, like I pretty much agree with you. In fact, it's interesting. You probably haven't seen this, but IO9 just dropped an article this afternoon titled "Why Don't We Know More About Star Wars Droids?" And it was just basically another pro droid puff piece.
What the hell?
Yeah, it's really weird, man.
So, all right, real quick, I want to pay a tease because last month in April we did the Star Wars update and we said we'd talk about this, like that. And you brought up the beginning letter, which was D, and D stood for droids.
Right.
Okay, this is what we mentioned at the end of the episode, and I talked about it a bit in the Sovereign Tech review. And yeah, like there throughout the books, the comics, even some like off the wall comics, like the one about how C-3PO got his red arm,
Right.
like all these other things. There's this weird treat droids like people, and look, I'm not against that. I mean, I think that's fine, and
Right.
but it's weaving itself like in small ways and then sometimes in huge ways. And honestly, in Solo, it was in a huge fucking way. In the
Right.
book Last Shot, it was all over the place in that. In fact, you find out L3 is pretty much still alive, or at least a version
Right.
of her in Last Shot.
I almost wonder if they're going to have like some sort of like you mentioned, like a droid rebellion sort of plot. That's
Yeah,
the
I mean,
center of one of these movies.
yeah, you could effectively pull off a Dune,
And I think, I think they did that like back in the 90s with one of the Star Wars Droids comic books that Dark Horse put out. There was a Droid Rebellion.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it might even had the name Rebellion in the title of it.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't remember really. It's been a long time since I've read it, but I remember there was like like an assassin droid that was kind of looked like C-3PO.
Yeah, kind of like a 000 character.
Yeah, yeah,
from Afra. Yeah,
right. And that's another thing is the whole 000 BT thing. I mean, like they're continuing to be a huge presence in that comic book.
Oh, I mean, and yeah, I mean, right now 000 is in charge. I mean,
right.
He's like, he's running the show, and
right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. The only, for me, like I said in the review, I mean, the only two possible explanations I have for this, I mean, like they're really, really weaving it in. I mean, it's like
they are
gems in Marvel,
Yeah,
they're all over the place, and it's either that they have some kind of plan at some point to do like all of the organics versus the droids, like that's going to be a major storyline at some point, or like I think somebody at Disney might be afraid of Rocco's basilisk, where he's like, I'm going to write nice about the robots. That way I don't get tortured. And
that's so weird. But I mean, if anybody's going to like know about that sort of thing, it's probably going to be Star Wars fans.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Disney, like
the other thing, and Disney too. I mean, because the other thing it reminds me of is like the whole Harry Potter thing with the trolls, or is it the not the trolls, the the magical little creatures that they use as slave labor in the Harry Potter series.
Oh, you got me at Harry Potter. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the movies because of other people that I'm friends with, but
sure.
Yeah, they have these, basically they're just a slave race of magical creatures, like, and the kids in the movies befriend them, and they have like a free the creatures sort of movement and something.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, I mean, I can see. Well, the other thing too is like Disney has worked on a bunch of different like genuine advanced technologies. This isn't conspiracy theory. It's just something they've done. I mean, Epcot, you look at the maglev train that they have. I mean, there's a lot of other things. And I think a lot of their Imagineers have actually been working on kind of like pseudo AI for a while.
So yeah, well, I mean, and they've obviously been working with robotics for a long time.
Exactly.
I saw an article recently where, like, I guess one of the things they have at Walt Disney World is, James Cameron's Avatar. I guess they have like an Avatar animatronic thing.
Yeah,
it's like it's supposed to be like a really advanced robotic technology they have built into these characters.
Right. So yeah, actually, in the 80s, pretty much next to DARPA's funding, Disney was putting the most money into robots.
Yeah.
In the 80s. I mean, like, and crazy amounts of money into robotics. So, I mean, like, they would know, like, they'd know about, Rocco's basilisk. I mean, like, they'd be that kind of people, the Imagineers there and whatever else. So, yeah, I mean, that's all I can say is it's so weird. It is, it's like, it's one of the rare times where I think there's genuinely some kind of conspiracy theory within a fictional universe, but like it's a conspiracy theory around the production of the fictional universe.
Right. Well, and it's not just in like the movies too, because like you have it in the ancillary, fiction with the not like even in who I don't like this guy's books, but Chuck Wendig's Aftermath books, you have that character, that battle droid from the prequels that he rebuilds, and it's like a fairly autonomous, sort of droid.
Yeah, Mr.
Other
Bones.
than that, it just follows him around like a dog.
Right. Well, I mean, and also like now, in The Force Awakens and everything, or like in the Poe Dameron comics, C-3PO, he's not treated like an idiot anymore. He's like in charge of a gigantic spy network.
Right.
And like he's legit, like he's a powerful character. It's so fucking weird. I mean, that's all I can say about it. And like I've been noticing it for probably 2 years now. That I started to see. It really started with that Red Arm comic, that one shot where they showed how C-3PO got the red arm. For me, that's where I first noticed it. I said, wait, it's like, what is it? Because like there's a droid in that is having like a crisis of conscience and is like thinking it's dreaming and everything. Like that is a very strange comic. And just about everybody else, you talk about Solo, like, well, we didn't need this movie. Everybody that read that comic was like, what the hell was that? Like who thought that this comic needed to be out there? And it only makes sense in the light of this major underlying story arc or conspiracy that eventually the droids are going to do something.
Even if it's not Rocco's Basilisk, like you said, Disney has in the past made huge investments in robotics and stuff like that. I mean, it's not really hard to imagine that Disney is going to be probably one of these companies that's pro AI, like Google.
Yeah, no,
and you're almost wondering if they're just kind of like inserting this stuff to like prepare people.
Yeah, I mean, I could picture some predictive programming,
Yeah.
I mean, even like in The Force Awakens, Rey treats BB-8 like, like a human being, like, oh, I'm sorry, you're being kidnapped.
Both Rey and Poe. I mean,
right. Yeah,
Poe treats him like a co-pilot.
Yeah,
more
exactly.
Than droid, like even more so than Luke did R2.
Yeah, super weird. But in Solo, it really comes to head. I mean, it came to head in the Last Shot novel, but in Solo, it definitely it is in your face. This whole idea of droid revolution.
Right.
So yeah, we'll see what ends up coming to that. Really, I mean, I guess that's only time's going to tell. So, all right. Well, I mean, anything else on Solo or anything else in your notes?
No, I think I'm all done with my notes. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get to. So this is something we're going to save the fan work of the month. We're going to save that for the end. But let's get to. I did just this past week. I did a top 8 Star Wars ships, and I had to use the term ships because, like in Star Wars, so much is cool. Like because you get vehicles, you get all these other things. It's not just like Star Trek where pretty much it's starships and that's the order of the day, and maybe some shuttlecraft here and there. So, and I said in the episode, I gave my top 8 and I said, I was like, I got to ask Robin, like what his top 8 is. And man, like, we talked a little bit before the show and you're like, oh, I don't have a top 8. I have like 3 separate lists.
It was hard, man. It was so hard just to narrow it down to 8 ships. Cause I love Star Wars so much. I mean, and you don't understand, like one of the things that really got me deeply ingrained into Star Wars, and I've talked about this before, was the West End Games RPG.
Yeah.
And they were so big in establishing the canon and the technical background and knowledge about the ships.
Yeah, they were meticulous.
And then they added more ships. And so just like, I mean, there's just there's just such a huge collection of really cool stuff there in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, and in the 90s, we had so many great like essential guides, they called them at the time.
Right. Yeah, I still have all of those.
Yeah, those were awesome. Like I poured through those. Like
yeah, in fact, not only do I still have those guides, but what I did was when I got those guides is that I went and found the role playing game stats for those ships and wrote them down in those essential guide books, so that I'd have an all-in-one reference library of both Star Wars ships and role-playing knowledge.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, those books and all that was absolutely amazing. So yeah, I totally understand why like you couldn't break it down to just like an 8. You had to do 3 separate lists with an 8 of each.
I had to do starfighters, transports, and capital ships. So basically small, medium, large.
All right, let's go through them. Okay. We'll try and kind of blaze, but let's go through them. Let's start with the starfighters, then we'll do transports, then capital ships.
Okay. So, and that's a good, because that's exactly the order I have it written in. So
right on.
We do that. So coming in at number 8 is the Alpha Class XG-1 Starwing, or better known as the Assault Gunboat from TIE Fighter.
Oh yeah. Nice.
So like the thing, like it's a really cool looking, and it's a very kind of almost un-imperial looking ship.
Yeah.
Because it's very aerodynamic looking. It doesn't look anything like any of their TIE fighters or anything. But the really cool thing about this ship was it was the first time in that game, TIE Fighter, where you got into this ship and you're like, okay, I'm no longer sitting in a tin can with lasers.
Yeah, right.
It was the first ship that really kind of felt like it was a match for the X-Wing.
Yeah, and this kind of had didn't it kind of have an X-Wing, like the wings would make the shape of an X? Am I remembering?
No, it was more like a star shape, like half of a star.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's like a starburst shape.
Yeah. No, I know the ship. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, anything from TIE Fighter from the game is going to be a great pick, but that's a great pick.
And it won't be the last one, of course.
Rock and roll.
So number 7 would be the Blade Wing, and I don't mean the B-Wing that we see for the first time in Return of the Jedi, I'm talking about the prototype that was in
from
Rebels.
Yes, the orange one.
The orange one.
Yeah, that Hera flew.
Right. Well, Hera and Sabine, because they had the separate gunnery pod down at the bottom.
Right.
And it had that super powerful weapon that they could just fire once, but it was like really packed. I mean, it took out a whole starship.
Yeah. In fact, that episode, and that whole flight, especially when Hera's first like testing it out, I thought that was just some of the best Star Wars. Like it was exhilarating watching, and like the music. Kevin Kiner, talk about great music. Kevin Kiner fucking delivered.
I was thinking that earlier. It would be great if they got Kevin Kiner to do a soundtrack for one of these movies.
Yeah, that needs to happen. A lot of people are pushing for that, and I'm glad, because he would have killed John Powell.
Right.
So yeah, but that episode in particular, I thought was a brilliant. I think it was like season 2 or 3 or 3. I think it was season.
I thought it was season 2. I could be wrong.
Yeah, maybe it's 2, but I knew it was around.
It is one of my favorite episodes throughout the entire series, and for a number of reasons. For one, because the character that designed the B-Wing, Query, is a reference to Ralph McQuarrie, the artist from the original trilogy, and the planet that he's developing the ship on was the planet Shantipole, which was a reference to the old West End Games role-playing game, because the story behind that was they had the development project for the B-Wing was called Project Shantipole. It wasn't a planet; it was the name of the project.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
And Admiral Akbar was the one that was kind of like the brain behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So now they mentioned this in the TIE Fighter game. Like,
yes,
Project Shantipole is one of the things that you're trying to like capture shit from.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I knew I recognized like Shantipole. Like, yeah. Well, TIE Fighter's a lifestyle. We all know that. So yeah, great pick. Awesome pick on that, because that was one of the first episodes I remember where I was like, okay, this is great. Like, Star Wars Rebels is really great. So, okay, what else we got?
Number 6, the Comric class Gauntlet Starfighter, which was the ship that the Mandalorians were using in the Clone Wars. That kind of had the rotating wings.
Oh yeah.
Around. They had the similar design. Yeah, they had a similar design in Rebels, but it was smaller. And it was also the same ship that Maul was using in Rebels, because he basically had one of those and repainted it all red and black, and that's actually my favorite version of that particular kind of ship.
Hell yeah. So that's the one where like the wings could flip up, right?
Right. Well, they kind of spin.
Yeah.
They have like a central cockpit, and the wings can kind of like spin, and they have the laser mounts on the wings themselves, so you kind of get like this rotating Gatling gun fire. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. All right, great pick on that one.
Okay. Was it we on to number 5? Yes. The TIE SF from Force Awakens and Last Jedi.
Yeah, so, this could have made mine too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean this kind of like fixes everything that's wrong with the base TIE fighter.
Right. You get shields.
And you've got a gunnery station with a rear firing arc.
Yes.
This is a deadly ship.
Yeah.
And I almost feel it's kind of underserved in the prequel movies, because you don't really get to see, I think, it perform as well as it can.
Yeah. And the one thing I don't like about it, so the SF stands for Special Forces. The one thing I have a model of it actually up above me here, but
I do too.
The one thing I don't like about it, I hate the white solar panels on it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the thing with all the first order TIE fighters. They just kind of reverse the colors.
Yeah,
but I mean, just from a technical standpoint, that's a great ship.
Agreed. No, I agree. That was one of the best things I thought to come out of The Force Awakens, frankly. So yeah, great pick.
Okay, number 4. So I'm sure I was actually surprised this wasn't on your list, but the Star Viper from Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah. So the only reason this wasn't on, so that's Shizor's ship, right?
Xizor's, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, one day we'll get the canon pronunciation of that, because like the chair said it wrong, and in the beginning of the book, and it's like the chair is saying Shizor, but then it's Zizor, whatever. Anyway, so
potato.
Yeah, but the only reason it didn't make my list was because I was trying to stick with only like one kind of non-new.
Oh, yeah. That's the only thing I didn't like about your list, is you were trying to restrain yourself too much. Like, no, Star Wars ships, love them all the way, love everything.
Yeah, because I love the ship, and Prince Shizor is one of my favorite characters.
I know.
Overall.
Yeah.
So,
And and it's such a great design too.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really kind of aggressive and sinister looking.
Yeah, is this the one that's made?
Huh?
Is this the one that's made by the insectoid race? Maybe I'm confusing. Anyway,
no, the Verpine, yeah, those were they co-developed originally in the expanded universe. They were the ones that co-developed the B-wing with the Rebel Alliance.
Right. Okay. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, I really don't. I mean, the ship speaks for itself.
Yes.
Just look at it.
Yeah. I mean, like the big cannons that come down the whole thing.
Yeah. I'd say this thing's even more aggressive looking than anything that the Imperials have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary looking ship.
Yeah.
You know, when you see it, and I think you got to fly one in the game Shadows of the Empire at one point, or at least you fly against it. I know you go.
Yeah, you do fly. Yeah, I think the only ship you fly in the game was
the Outrider.
the Outrider. Yeah.
Yeah, the 2400. Yeah.
Right.
Great pick. Yeah, I have no argument there.
Number 3, and I know you wanted to put this one on your list because you did kind of sort of mention it, was the TIE Phantom.
Yeah, I love this thing.
Yeah,
from Rebel Assault 2. I mean, again, the cloaking device on a TIE fighter. How can you go wrong? You know,
you can't. I mean, it is just a. You talk about space superiority fighter. That's it.
It feels like it in the game too, because you get to fly one, you steal one effectively in Rebel Assault 2, and
it's kind of a shame that there aren't any other games where you get to fly that thing.
Or even fly against it. Like I would have loved to have seen it somewhere else. I love both of those games. Both Rebel Assault games I thought were awesome.
They did release a ship for it in the Final Fantasy Flight Games miniature game.
Oh, okay.
So it's there, so it's kind of cool, and it is a nice ship.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2, and maybe I'll get some flack from this. I don't know, but I love the TIE Silencer, Kylo Ren's new TIE fighter.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's such a step up from. I mean, and the TIE Interceptor is already a great ship, and this is a step up from that.
Yeah, it's like it's a Dodge Viper version of the TIE fighter.
Absolutely, I mean, this just really is kind of like the sports car TIE fighter.
Yeah, I mean,
especially
it just
has with those ruby red windows in the cockpit.
Yeah, it has such beautiful lines, and it really looks like a sleeker TIE Advanced X1, which is also cool because it kind of looks like Granddaddy's.
It is a kind of a departure for the TIE fighter because it's a lot bigger than your standard TIE fighter, like any model. It's even bigger than number 1 pick is the TIE Defender.
Woo! Yeah.
No, just I mean, like everything that you said about it, I agree 100%. This is like the best starfighter in all Star. It always will be, hands down. No argument.
No, exactly. On my top 8 that I did, this was my number 1 ship, just of them all. And yeah, I mean, it is the best. It really is the best. It looks awesome. I mean, it looks so fucking fierce. You don't know how the hell it's going to land, but it looks, because of the wing designs. But I mean, it's still such a badass looking little ship. Man, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just it's not just badass looking, but I mean, it like you said with the tractor beam on it, and it having both ion cannons and 4 laser cannons. I mean, this ship really packs a punch.
Yeah. You almost want like a celebrity death match, but with Star Wars ships, and just have have the Defender go against the TIE SF. And still, like, it'd be awesome to still see the Defender.
I'd still think the Defender to win. I'm like, I feel like it would be unfair to pit one ship against any TIE Defender. I think you would almost have to take 2 of any other ship in the Star Wars or Starfighter in the Star Wars universe and pit it against the TIE Defender, because the TIE Defender is just that good.
Yeah, I mean, and something I love that Filoni did in Rebels is because that's where we get to have it as canon in the new canon.
Right.
He makes the point that Tarkin liked the TIE Defender project more than he liked the Death Star. And I just think that speaks volumes. Like, I'm like, oh, that was so cool. Because that felt like Filoni saying to all the kids that grew up, which I imagine he probably did too. Everybody that grew, and not that he was a kid, but everybody that grew up playing TIE Fighter, like, here's your moment, here's your golden award. The baddest guy in the universe, that being Grand Moff Tarkin, says this is the project we should be funding. This is
and it also speaks to the genius of Thrawn, that he recognizes the big flaw in the entire TIE Fighter program, that, you know, if you're going to fight a serious war, it's not just going to be a matter of throwing, you know, massive numbers at the enemy. You need something that can outmatch anything else the enemy has.
Yeah, you need space superiority. And right. I mean, just to bring it, like the TIE Fighter game where the TIE Defender originated from, Thrawn is in that. Like Thrawn is referenced. Thrawn is in the opening scene, or opening cutscenes of the game. I mean, so it fits. It works. Like, and it fits in with his mentality when you read Heir to the Empire.
Right.
So yeah, totally. So great choice for number one. I won't argue anything against it. So, all right, let's go to the transports. Let's do that.
Okay. Top 8 transport coming in at number 8 would be the Millennium Falcon. And
sure.
The only reason why this isn't higher is because the YT-1300 is just kind of like the stock freighter of the entire Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's the workhorse. Yeah,
it is. It really is. I mean, there's not just and you talked about the Falcon being in Revenge of the Sith. It wasn't the only YT-1300 in that movie, and there were also several YT-1300s at the spaceport in Attack of the Clones.
Yes.
On Naboo.
Yeah.
So I mean, like there was like 3 of them there. So I mean, like there are just like an overabundance of YT-1300s in the Star Wars universe. So like, you know, that's the reason it doesn't appear higher in my list. The Millennium Falcon's a great ship, but the stock model that's based on is just kind of like ho hum.
Yeah, I mean, without the advancements that were put into the Millennium Falcon, the YT-1300, right? It's not anything to write home about. I agree.
Right.
Sure.
So number 7, the Lambda class shuttle.
Nice.
I loved this ship from the first moment when I saw it. I mean, this is kind of like the limousine of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
It is such a classy piece of work. I remember like just kind of like constantly haranguing my parents, like, I need the Imperial shuttle and like at least 2 Imperial guards. Like that was just like my whole quest in life was to have those things.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my first toys that I remember growing up was having the Lambda class shuttle. I mean, and it was big. Like, I mean, you know, granted I was a very little kid, but it was like that the top wing and everything. I mean, that was huge. It was a huge toy.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. Yeah, a great choice. I no argument here.
Okay, so number 6, the Ebon Hawk from the Old Republic.
Ebon Hawk.
That was the ship. Yeah, that Revan.
Yeah, the Darth. Yeah, right.
And really, like, I mean, it is not like it is not really a kind of really stunning looking ship.
Mm-hmm.
This one kind of like opposite to like almost like the Falcon. I pick it just for its prominence and notoriety. Because there was a time in the Star Wars universe that was like the most sought after ship in the entire universe.
Right.
Everybody was looking for the Ebon Hawk.
Right.
It was a truly legendary ship.
Yeah, you know, I'll just say this quickly. Like if I allowed for more old canon ships in my list, like a lot of stuff from Tales of the Jedi or the Knights of the Old Republic era would have made it, especially Tales of the Jedi, because like those ships were so grandiose and like, I don't even know how to describe it because they look kind of clumped together, but they were beautiful and just huge at the same time. And like they had these wild wing structures and everything.
Right.
It was really, really unique.
Yeah, especially in the Tales of the Jedi, you just had those and they were kind of like these very asymmetrical looking ships.
Yeah.
Which was like very cool for Star Wars.
Real works of art. A lot of any of those could have made it into my list.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I did look up some of those, and unfortunately, not all of them have classified names.
Right. Yeah.
So the next
number 5.
Number 5. This one's going to be, I think, one that a lot of people haven't heard of, and it's just a personal favorite of mine, and that's the Ski Spray Blast Boat from Heir to the Empire in the Thrawn trilogy, which is the ship that Luke and Mara Jade escaped from what's his name's outpost where the Empire is looking for them. Talon Card. Yeah. But it's just really interesting. It's almost like a naval looking ship, and it has this cool thing where like the wings pivot in the back.
Right. Yeah, I'm picturing it now. It took me a second, but I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, and it was like, to me, it was like this really, like, for me, it was like the first time that you saw kind of like a transport that could also fit as sort of like a starfighter role.
Sure. Fair. Yeah, good choice.
Okay, number 4, the Nubian Naboo Royal Starship from episode 1.
I love that thing.
Yeah. I mean,
talk about a Porsche. I mean,
right.
Talk about the limo. I mean,
that thing's sexy.
Yeah, it really is.
Say whatever you will about episode 1. I might not agree with you, or I might agree with you, but like that ship was just damn sexy, and it was a huge departure for what you'd seen in the Star Wars universe, but it worked.
Yeah, it wasn't utilitarian like we were used to.
No,
it really was a big statement of what the universe was like.
It just brought some real class to the Star Wars universe, like kind of like above, like even the, and that's why it's higher than the Lambda shuttle.
Sure.
Because like the Lambda shuttle is kind of like really classy car, but the Naboo ship, I mean, that's kind of like Rolls-Royce territory.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, Lucas with his brilliance, I mean, or he's a big fan of cars. He obviously delivered like that attitude. I'm sure he brought that attitude to the design when he was talking to Doug Chiang or whatever.
Right.
And yeah, it's stunning. Yeah, I agree with you there.
So next, this is going to be overlap with your list, the Scimitar Sith Infiltrator.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, especially after you read the Lando
comic. I hear again talking about episode 1. Say what you will, but like they just had great ships.
Yeah, and awesome
movie.
Design all over those movies.
Yeah.
Like the cinematography, or well, not the cinematography, but just the design. I guess the design language, all that stuff was gorgeous. I mean,
right.
like they really are beautiful films visually.
And talk about paying respect and homage to the original trilogies. You had those kind of like hints of the TIE fighter in that ship.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said in my top 8, the fact that it's still advanced when you get to the time when Lando Calrissian is alive, because it's in the Lando,
right.
the original Lando comic series.
And I loved it. That was in that comic book series. I mean, that's already a really great, probably the best series that Marvel's done so far.
Yes.
The fact that they added that ship in there is just like cream, icing on the cake.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. So, all right. So we're up to number 1?
No, number 2.
Okay.
Number 2, we have the Otana, or the YT-2000 from X-Wing Alliance.
Oh yeah, this is. Go ahead, describe her. I mean, this is a beautiful.
So
ship.
I mean, it's a variation on the Carillion Engineering Corporation ships, like the Millennium Falcon, but it was like, instead of having the cockpit to the side, it had the cockpit coming out from the center between the two mandibles.
Yeah, it's a YT freighter that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, and it had like really just, and it was actually it was a thinner ship, but it was taller too.
Right.
So they had like bigger gunnery section, the top on the bottom.
Yeah. See, yeah, I mean, it didn't look like the Ghost, but it made sense like the Ghost.
Right.
From Rebels. So, all right. So, what do you got for number 1?
Well, you already said it.
I should have known. This almost made my list. I know what you're saying.
So yeah, the VCX 100, the Ghost. I mean, I love this ship so much. Like, if I was to have a ship in the Star Wars universe for me and my crew to hang out with, this would be it.
Yeah, it's a ship that, like, it's amazing because, like, the ship really gave you, we talked about it when we reviewed Rebels in a previous Star Wars update, how the show felt like family. This is a ship that facilitates that kind of family, that kind of connection, that kind of deep connection.
And that's one of the things I love about it so much, is it really is sort of just kind of like the non-traditional family unit sort of ship,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I have many fond feelings. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but that's the ship that Han Solo was bluffing that he owned in Solo when he plays that first
VCX.
Yeah,
right.
he answered the and everybody goes, "Ooh, that's a nice ship." I'm like, "Damn right."
Well, and it's nice, and a lot of people talk shit about the Book of New Dawn, which is the Star Wars Rebels prequel novel.
I liked that book.
I did too, and one of the things I liked about it is how they talk about a lot of the technicals of the Ghost.
Yeah,
and they say like all the stealth technologies that she built into it. Awesome, great.
And
I mean, we're not
it was
getting
a,
a cloak device, but cool.
and not only, I mean, the great thing about that book too is you got like an adult take on those characters.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Yep,
like
you're
you
right.
actually kind of like, of course, at the end you have explicit, evidence of Cain and Hera's relationship.
Right.
But through New Dawn, you see that was going on from the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah,
there was definitely like chemistry between these two characters.
yeah, I like that book. I mean, even like the way that they introduced Hera in it, I thought made her like a badass character.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
yeah, I think that book really gets a short shrift for some reason. I don't understand why, but
I don't either, but I do. I really enjoy it. It's not my top book.
no, not at all.
But it's definitely up there.
Yeah. So, all right, do we got the capital ships now, or did you
Yeah,
have
the
more you want to
capital
say on the
ships.
Ghost?
Okay, so number eight's going to be obvious. It's the Imperial class Star Destroyer.
Yeah,
I mean, this
iconic.
is, yeah, it really is. I mean, it's the first ship that wows everybody in Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, talk about
the original trilogy.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, it just says strength. It's just
it is. It is.
So
it is the epitome of the projection of force.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Okay, number 7, the Dreadnought heavy cruiser from Dark Force Rising.
Okay, yeah, from the Empire trilogy.
The Katana fleet.
Yeah.
And that's why I love this because I thought it was just so a cool concept to have like a massively slaved rig like fleet that they can control, because apparently like this normally took a crew of like tens of thousands and they cut it down to hundreds.
Right.
And
it's a good looking ship too. I mean,
it's
got like a nice design. I mean, good cylinder. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, it's very utilitarian looking, but it works.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that was one of the first hints we ever got of things that existed during the Old Republic back then.
Right.
And it kind of oozed what we expected of the Old Republic. And so,
right. Yeah. It was almost a shame that they didn't include that in the prequels at all.
Yeah, they did. Now, in the old expanded universe, if I remember right, they find the fleet, but
right.
The New Republic ends up converting some of these, if I remember correctly. And
but Thrawn took the majority of them.
Right. Yeah. Which I mean that was really cool stuff. A great pick there. Awesome.
Okay. Numbers at 6. Yeah. The MC-80 Mon Calamari cruiser.
So this is the big boy.
This is the big boy. Yeah. And I just like Return of the Jedi. I just thought it was just such a beautiful looking ship, and it was so unique, just in starships. Period. I don't care what universe you're talking about.
Yeah. The bubble designs and everything on it.
Right.
I mean,
and the fact that later on we found out that that these ships were originally like Mon Calamari cities underneath, the ocean. It's just like such a cool little aspect that they were able to convert their where they lived into starships.
Yeah, it speaks something to like the rebellion, like the attitude of the rebellion, where like look everything.
Well, and the Mon Calamari too. I mean, that's
yeah.
just like you get the impression these are like a species of brilliant engineers.
Yeah, and it looks like I mean, it's beautiful. Like the old saying goes, "As beautiful as they are deadly." I mean, that was definitely the case of the MC-80s. Yeah, nice choice there.
Yeah. So this is the next one is going to be one probably I would say nobody else has heard of, and this is one of those West End Games role playing games ships is the Far Star, and it was actually a role playing game campaign written by Timothy Zahn.
Whoa! All right.
Yeah, and so the Far Star was a modified Corellian corvette, like you see that Princess Leia has in A New Hope.
Yep, the blockade runner, beautiful.
But they added a section onto it that actually added a hangar for starfighters, and it was almost like the Battlestar Galactica sort of hangar.
Oh, okay. Where it launches out of the side.
Yeah. So
nice.
it was really cool. I mean, and this is another one. It was like one of the things I love about Star Wars ships is just kind of like they have these capital ships that kind of serve as like they could be unto themselves mobile, like bases.
Yeah. That's definitely a thing in Star Wars.
Yeah, and this kind of like for me epitomized that.
Yeah, I mean, and just real quick on that, I mean, it is interesting. You get practically no space stations in Star Wars. And that's mainly because kind of what you said, where like each one of these ships can really be a, you know, mobile base unto themselves. I mean, you get more in kind of other mediums, but like certainly in the movies, I mean, you know, it's the Death Star and that's about it.
Okay, next we have the Hammerhead class cruiser, and I actually prefer the one from the Old Republic game as opposed to one that showed up in, you know, Rebels and Rogue One.
Okay. Yeah.
I just thought it was just like the design of the ship is really cool.
It was cool. It happened in Rogue One though, where like
no, absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would say that was
probably, into the other.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably like the coolest use of the ship. But so far as the look of the ship, I think the one in the Old Republic actually looked cooler.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree
because it was a little sleeker looking. The one in the new canon is kind of beefy.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. True. Yeah. No, it is prettier back in the day. That's a fact.
Okay, number 3, and this is just going to be another variation of the same thing we were talking about before, is the Trade Federation battleships from the prequel series.
The ring shaped. I mean, like those.
I just thought it was a brilliant design.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're really cool.
And then when you saw in Attack of the Clones, the Battle of Geonosis, they actually the center portion of the ship was a separate thing that could separate.
Right.
Because they showed those launching up into atmosphere. So I just thought and that was really, it's cool. Here again, it is just another very excellently designed sort of mobile base station sort of ship.
Yeah, I mean, even when you get Anakin flying through it in episode 1, and like you really get a look through the innard and how, you know, you can go right through. I mean, I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome that you can do that.
And other than the design flaw that he was able to go in there and blow up the engines,
right?
I just thought that was here again. It's almost kind of like the Battlestar Galactica in a sense.
Yeah, the way that you could launch the Vulture droids.
Right.
Yeah, nice. Which that, you know, Vulture droids could have made my list, because I always thought that those were actually pretty cool. I know they're dumb, but like, or, you know, like mentally they're.
Yeah, I was always kind of partial to the I forget what they call it, but they were the kind of like the tri droids. They were like
the droidicas.
No. They were starfighters, but they had like 3 kind of like curved wings.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. The ones from episode 3, right?
Right. Yeah.
I can't think of their name either, but I know what you're talking about. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, number 2, the Interdictor class Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
This is the one that really makes the Empire work. You talk about the Imperial class Star Destroyers being the projection of power. The Interdictor is the one that it gives the Empire its iron grip on trade,
right,
and just movement throughout the universe.
Because these are the ones that generate their own gravity wells, right?
Right. And they can just park themselves in any traffic, you know, a hyperspace lane and interdict all the traffic. And that's just like, that gives them so much power and control over the galaxy. I mean, otherwise, like without the ship existing, I don't know how the Empire works.
Yeah, right. How do you maintain it? You know, if you can't like just put a complete stop to any ship nearby. Yeah, even in hyperspace. That's so cool. Okay,
number 1, the Eclipse class Star Destroyer, Dark Empire.
So, like, people, you got to understand, this Star Destroyer is fucking huge. Like, it's just a giant black Star Destroyer.
Yep.
And it has this cool, like, the front of it is, it looks like a battleship. Like, I mean, like, it kind of comes down like it's cutting through, like battleships are designed to cut through water.
It looks like an icebreaker or something.
Yeah. I mean, oh man, no. Yeah. I mean, that's a perfect number 1.
It is. Yeah. I just, and my only criticism is that they didn't use it to its full potential in the comic book.
Right.
They had that super laser built into the hull, and they never use it.
That was fantastic. That was so cool. I love that ship. Yeah, great number 1 to pick there. Man, all right. So, awesome list. I mean, that's all I can say to that. I mean, that's a brilliant list, and I wouldn't argue with much of any of it. I mean, like all 3 lists, I wouldn't argue with much of any of them. But a nice breakdown, and you took me down memory lane on some of those. So
yeah, I mean, I have a great love for all of Star Wars, including the expanded universe. I mean, you know, like I agree with you that in many ways Star Trek is superior. And I do agree that in some ways they have better looking ships at times, but Star Wars has just the greatest variety of ships of any like science fiction universe.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, there's a reason we could get so many guides out of it. I mean, way
Yeah,
more than what Star Trek has.
right,
You know, and within what is effectively it was its canon at the time. I mean, like it
right.
was really, yeah. There you could dive. That's always been one of Star Wars' greatest strengths is you really feel like you could live in that universe. You know, and like there's just so much. It's so rich and so detailed, more so than just about any other franchise that I can really think of. So
All right. We want to move
yeah,
on to the next subject.
yeah. Let's get to the fan. Let's get to our
Oh,
fan
yeah.
pick of the month,
Yes. This
and
is a
then I
good
think
one.
we'll wrap this up. So this is a Star Wars comic, and it's a StarWarsComic.com. Of course, link is in the show notes for this episode, if you want to check it out. But tell me all about this, Robin.
This is a fan done comic, and it's really professionally done. And I don't just mean the art, the stories, the writing is good, and it is basically Star Wars short fiction in comic book form, and then they're kind of one off stories all throughout different eras of the Star Wars universe, and it's I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I
Sure.
just want people to go and check this out because this is really like kind of cream of the crop fan work.
Yeah, I mean, I've briefly looked at it, and it is gorgeous. I mean, like what everything that's on display here is absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and they're continuing to work on it. They're still coming out with new issues all the time. It's being expanded upon, and they integrate stuff from all throughout different areas of Star Wars, including the original trilogy and the prequels and the sequel era. There's something there for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this looks again just wonderful, and speaks to, how easy it is to create this kind of thing, for Star Wars. Like, not every franchise have I like. I'll tell you something. I would never make a fan work for like Babylon 5 because I feel like that universe is so tightly knit and not so open. As to where Star Wars, yeah, you can just run roughshod like this. It's really, yeah. This is gorgeous.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like I said, it's well written too. It's not kind of like, I think my personal opinion is fan fiction gets a bad rap,
sure.
especially in Star Wars. But I would say this is even a cut above most fan fiction.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be reading this. I'm going to be checking this out, because yeah, I mean, I can always consume more Star Wars. I'm more than happy to do that. I do everything.
And the art really kind of reminds me of like kind of the older. It's kind of more like what I would like to see Marvel doing instead of the kind of hyper realistic look that they're trying to go for.
Yeah, this feels more like a DC comic, honestly. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think the only person in Marvel right now that's doing this kind of Star Wars comic is Luke Ross with the Thrawn comic. I'd say it's probably that same quality of art.
sure. No, yeah, I would agree because like even when like I'm looking at some of the panels, even when it's smaller characters, I mean it's highly detailed.
Yeah.
What they
And
have.
these people know their Star Wars.
Yeah, clearly. So yeah, great pick. I love it. So that's a StarWarsComic.com. That's where you can check out all of that. Are there any particular issues you wanted to bring up that are like really great from it?
Well, I mean, like they just did a Han Solo issue is the most recent one.
Okay.
And it doesn't tie into the movie at all because these people don't have any kind of like forward knowledge
Sure.
of the what's going to happen in the movies. But I mean, it's just if you watch Solo and you're wanting more Han Solo stories, go check out the latest issue.
Nice.
Which is I think it's issue 15.
Yeah, number 15. So, and that's from this year, 2018. So, yeah, StarWarsComic.com. That's the website. Check this stuff out. I love the look of it. I think that's phenomenal. So, all right. Well, I'm going to ask you this, Robin. We'll end off with this. I mean, how do you feel the state of Star Wars is right now after Solo?
There's I almost have to answer that question in two ways because I think the state of like the Star Wars franchise is it. I mean, there's room for criticism. There's always room for improvement.
Sure.
But it's doing okay. I do think Disney has a marketing problem,
Yeah, I would agree.
and it's trickling out into the fan base, and things are getting kind of ugly in the fan base, and
Yeah.
it's really kind of disheartening because when I went to Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim in 2015, everybody was kind of like just super friendly and getting along, and we all love Star Wars. And now there just seems to be this attitude where, like, if you like or dislike certain parts of Star Wars, well, then you're that kind of person, whatever
Yeah.
that means, you know. But
Yeah.
there's a dividing line.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And it is not a great feeling at all,
No,
because I'm not used to it. Like we used to be able to talk about, well, I didn't like this novel, I didn't like this novel, but now it seems like the stakes are so high with what Disney's putting out there that
yeah,
people are like
right,
upping their fandom stakes as well,
right. And
and
there's all
it's
these conspiracy theories and whatnot
yep,
about what their agendas. I mean, we've talked about this before. Lucasfilm's agenda is to make money.
yeah,
And if they've got, admittedly, if they've got a marketing problem, that's just a miscalculation on their part. And I don't think you can blame any one person on it, because right now there's this thing going on where people are trying to get Kathleen Kennedy fired.
right,
And I don't think you can lay it all on her, because there's, like I said before, there's a lot of hands in the Star Wars pie right now. That's one of the problems. The other problem is you've got people all the way up at the top kind of micromanaging the franchise.
yeah,
Bob Iger is deeply invested in everything going on Star Wars. As far as I hear, he's there at every pitch meeting, at every script review. He gets all the dailies. He makes frequent set visits to all the movies. I mean, he's got his hands deep in this stuff. He's like to the point where I think he's neglecting the rest of his business to micromanage Star Wars.
yeah. I feel like, and Solo kind of bolsters this. I almost feel like Disney has a 100-year plan with Star Wars, and that's why Iger's so deep, and that's like they're banking some pretty serious futures on Star Wars.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really feel that, and I know they put down a lot of money for it in the first place, but they've got to have made that back.
And I'm worried about Star Wars fatigue just getting worse,
Mm-hmm.
because they've announced far more movies now than I thought they would have, because there was a thing that came out a couple of years ago before The Last Jedi came out, talking and this was an official thing. It wasn't a rumor or anything, talking about their plans for the future of Star Wars. And they were saying there was going to be a break after episode 9. And now it seems like they've done away with that, because they've got the Boba Fett movie, they've got Rian Johnson's trilogy, they've got the Star Wars TV show. Is there another movie I'm leaving? I'm sure there is. They've got more movies planned, but it's becoming a bit excessive.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're pattering after Marvel, and they're thinking they can't do enough, like with Marvel. But I don't.
And they're going way overboard with the merchandising.
Yeah, the merchandising thing's ugly too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and like, the Last Jedi toys and stuff, like, I think it's left a bad taste in retailers' mouths, because I'm hardly seeing any Solo merch in stores. I was talking to you about this beforehand, but I couldn't find the Solo guide or the art book in any stores near me, and I'm living in Southern California.
Yeah, right. You're in the hot spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna echo like pretty much everything you said. Like the thing that's feeling weird to me after seeing Solo is how pointless The Last Jedi. Like, I like The Last Jedi. I still
me too.
like it.
Yeah.
But the movie, like, I feel no need to watch it, because I don't think it adds anything to the Star Wars universe. Like, I mean, that's just the way I feel about it.
I mean, it's unfortunate, because I felt like they were trying to do something different with it.
Yeah, they're trying to do something special. I agree.
Yeah, and the fact that they didn't execute it very well, that is on them. But at the same time, the effort was there.
Yeah, 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 I mean, no, I know, and like Solo, like I said, I don't feel a need to like go out and see Solo again, but at the same time, like I got what I wanted out of Solo. My Star Wars universe just got bigger, you
Right.
know, and
Right.
that's kind of what I look for, and I know I might be rare in that, but yeah, it just speaks to how like where the Empire Strikes Back changed everything. The Last Jedi didn't, and Solo kind of did. Like Solo,
Yeah.
I think changed everything
That's
for a lot of people,
that's the
especially with
thing
Maul coming back.
that's really sad to me when I hear fans saying that they're not going to go see the movie because they're reacting to negatively to the Last Jedi.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, I
bad.
think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I mean, you can't expect me to take your opinion on the franchise very seriously because you're reacting negatively to one movie and you're going to punish this other movie, which if you actually went out and bothered to watch it, I think you would enjoy yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because you get the right people igniting lightsabers, in my opinion, in
Right.
Solo, and it's only
Right.
one, but it's enough.
And
And
and and like I said, I don't think there's any doubt that Ron Howard is a Star Wars fan, that
yep,
he cares about the franchise.
yep, yeah, yeah.
So it's
So
almost like they're punishing the very kind of content that some of these people want because of the previous movie.
yeah, yeah. No, it's sad. So the fandom situation's ugly. I think that there's some good ideas getting run. Um, yeah, I think like the TV series and some other things. I think that Resistance and all that's going to turn out
Yeah.
fine. Like I'm
Yeah, no, I don't have any worries about
yeah,
Resistance. And I'm hoping that the Star Wars television series turns out to be. I'd still love to see that Underground TV series that they were going to do.
yeah, or at least use the script somewhere, which maybe
Yeah,
they will.
yeah,
Maybe they will.
yeah.
So yeah, so not
And my other big hope is that a lot of people have talked about 1313, which was a Star Wars game that got canceled,
right.
and like. I kind of said earlier that I felt like the Boba Fett movie was unnecessary, but if they actually took the story from the 1313 game, which seemed like really cool, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And hell, you know what I'd be okay with right now? They could finally finish that Maul game. Now that Maul is like the hottest
Yeah,
topic in Star Wars. Okay,
yeah,
let's finish that fucking game because it looked amazing.
right. Yeah, what'd be great is if, like I said, if they did a Maul movie and they did the Boba Fett movie, and then they released both of those games as like tie-ins for the movie.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, we got to get games. You know, that's something. All right, I'm going to end with it. We'll end with this. Something that Star Wars needs right now is real video games that
Yeah,
aren't Battlefront. We need
yeah.
real fucking. It doesn't have to be a space simulators. Just give me some real fucking other video games besides Battlefront.
And I'm not going to go as extreme as to say that like the license needs to be pulled entirely from EA,
Right.
but I do think it needs to be opened up to other developers and publishers because it's a big mistake to basically for Lucasfilm and Disney to put all their eggs in the EA basket because
Yeah.
EA is fucking up left and right.
Yeah.
Now,
None of
granted, some of the updates recently for Battlefront have actually been kind of good ideas.
Yeah.
Ewok Hunt was a good idea.
Sure.
The fact that they have finally added single player for Starfighter mode was a good idea.
Yep.
We should have gotten that from the very beginning, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And none of this mobile game bullshit. Like
No, I'm so sick of like, and I kind of like my heart wilts when I see like Star Wars fans on Twitter like tweeting mobile game shit. I'm like, oh god, stop
Yeah,
it,
stop
it.
It's a money sink. Stop.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, all right. Well, Robin, as always, man, it is so much fun to do this show with you every month.
Absolutely.
Next month, we'll have a whole lot of catching up to do on some of the broader aspects of the Star Wars universe. And I'm sure maybe there'll be some other thoughts on Solo. We'll see what happens.
I'm sure we'll get some more news too.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of news.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get some better news as far as box office for Solo.
I hope so. That'd be nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be really nice if they came up with something really nice for the home video release. I don't know what they could do, but just make it a really well put together and nice release with some good extra content instead of just deleted scenes.
Yeah, I think this movie could win if it got that, and just to put to bed a lot of the stories around it too. I think
right. Yeah. No, I think that would help a big deal. I can't imagine that Ron Howard wouldn't want to do an audio track. That seems up his alley.
Oh yeah, he's that kind of guy because he does like all
Yeah,
those training courses for directing and everything too.
right,
So
right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
in fact, I would even put him in charge of putting together the home video release, because some of my favorite DVD releases in the past were basically kind of like the film school in a box sort of DVD releases that gave you all kinds of great behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, like he did with Apollo 13 and others. I
Yeah,
mean, he really did
yeah,
it. He did a solid job with those on DVD. I remember.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully that's what we'll get. But anyway, Robin, man, I will see you, or we'll rejoin next month for this action. Of course, I'll be seeing you online all the time. But anyway, we saw
I look
Solo.
forward to it every month. It's the highlight of the end of my month.
Right on, same here. And man, and well, we'll start talking episode 9 news soon enough. So
Probably.
all right, everybody. Whew, we will see all of you on the other side.